Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight on this. Hope you've kept fairly cool over the last couple days. Okay. Um, so we'll just get started here. So my name's Jamie Tarn. I'm the president of the Fire Safe Council of Siskiyou County, and this is our monthly regular meeting. It feels like it's been a couple months since I've actually been able to attend. So we'll just go do a round and do introductions. And if you can put on your camera, if possible, when you're speaking, that's really helpful. So, Greg, I'll start with you.
Mount Chester West, volunteer.
Thank you, Ruby.
Ruby Churchill, I'm Giselle's administrative assistant.
Giselle.
I'm Giselle Nova. I'm the coordinator for the Fire Safe Council of Siskiyou County.
Josh.
Hello, everyone. Project manager with CORE, working alongside the Fire Safe Council of Siskiyou County on the CWDG.
Heidi.
Hi, I'm Heidi George, Gateway Firewise community leader.
Great. Thank you. Glenn.
Hi, Glenn Jysted, board member of the Fire Safe Council of Siskiyou County.
Mr. Isbell.
Glenn Isbell, Fire and Fuels Planner with Klamath National Forest.
Kaylee.
Kaylee Kornhauser. I'm a Partnership Success Manager with Vibrant Planet.
Could you repeat, Kaylee? I couldn't hear you.
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Kaylee Kornhauser, and I'm a Partnership Success Manager with Vibrant Planet, working with Clint.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. Kevin.
Good evening, everybody. Kevin Mancebo, Assistant Chief Hazard Mitigation, CAL FIRE, Siskiyou Unit.
Thank you. Last time I talked to you, you were off going out of country, so it's nice to see you back. Dave.
Dave McAdams, Siskiyou Media Council, television stations in the county.
Thank you. Marlene.
Marlene Ludlow, and I live in Mount Shasta and just, been here for several years. And I mean, for the Fire Safe Council. Here I've been in Mount Shasta for like 35 years. I love it. I want to keep it fireless.
Great, thank you. Pamela?
Yeah, hi everyone. Pam Nerona, very interested in what the Fire Safe Council is trying to do, interested in forming Firewise communities. I'm a resident of the Mount Shasta Property Owners Association, the Mount Shasta Forest on the other side of McLeod. And I also have property in Mount Shasta City.
Great, thank you. Madeline?
We usually get more than this is 18. We usually get 35, 40, but they fire.
Madeline, can you hear me? Are you with us?
People leave.
Okay, we'll move to Darren.
Hey, I'm here.
Oh, there you are, Madeline.
Yeah, Madeline Lavaji, Quartz Valley resident, forest landowner. And sorry, Jamie, I can't figure out what button to press on my tablet to make my camera.
It's okay.
Okay.
Thanks. All right, Darren Weeks.
Hi, I'm Darren Weeks with the Air Pollution Control District. I'm here for the smoke. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Christine. Christine.
Sorry there, I had some internet issues, so I'm connecting on my phone. And I'm not used to the mobile form, but I'm Christine Holst and still there?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. And I work for the U.S. Forest Service out of the McLeod Ranger District office in the Fuels Department on the Shasta Trinity National Forest.
Great. Thank you. Tuli?
Hey everyone, I'm Tuli Potts. I'm with the State of California Sierra Nevada Conservancy. Good to be here.
Thank you. And James? Are you with us, James?
Yes, I'm here. I'm just trying to unmute myself.
Okay.
Thanks for putting this on. I live at Stellar Way behind the Mount Shasta High School.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for putting this on. I appreciate it.
Sure. You're welcome. And Kristen?
Hi, sorry, I'm en route. I'm Kristen Norman. I am Giselle's assistant and outreach coordinator for the Fire Safe Council of Siskiyou County.
Great. I think I got everybody. All right, we'll just move into our agenda and we'll start off with our action items. And Clint Isbell is going to speak on fire risk map and maybe other items.
Yeah. So, yeah, we've talked to Giselle and others, and we wanted to invite Kaylee Kornhauser and show them the Vibrant Planet platform today. It's probably a 20-minute presentation, and go over some of the stuff that we've been working on with them as a partner. We're in a contract with them. So just a little background. We were one of the landscapes that was selected for the wildfire crisis strategy a year or two ago, or probably 2 or 3 years ago now. And that has slowly faded away, but our objectives across the forest really has not. So once upon a time, we were going to prioritize the entire Klamath River Basin, and where we wanted to do treatments on federal lands and protect our assets and values. That is still the same. However, we're doing a more forest by forest approach. So we've been working with Vibrant Planet to help prioritize our projects under 3 kind of main categories: communities, infrastructure, and water. And they also help us identify other values out there that we have interest in protecting. So that's it in a nutshell. They're helping us prioritize our forests, where our next projects are going to go based on those identified values. The platform that Kaylee's about ready to show you has other applications, such as community wildfire protection plan components that we can plug into those. So I've been talking to Jay Perkins and others in that regard, and just community protection overall on where treatment should or could be occurring. So that's it in a nutshell. I'm going to kick it over to Kaylee and let her show a little bit about the platform and what it does. And we'll take some questions after that on the potential interest that the Fire Safe Council may have with this.
Thanks, Clint.
Clint, I just sent a request to share my screen. Oh, cool.
Doing that now. Yeah.
It looks like it'll work. Okay. So can folks see this screen now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So as Clint said, we've been working at Vibrant Planet with Klamath Wildfire Crisis Strategy Landscape, and now kind of this forest by forest effort. First to customize a platform that I'll show you a little bit later on, and then now to use it. It is accessible through Clint. He can provide keys to you all if it's of interest to get into the platform, and I'll explain kind of what you can do with it. But there are other offerings as well that I want to just talk through with you all because they're either free or really low cost ways to get at wildfire risk assessments and community wildfire protection plans. And so because we've already done this work with Klamath and with Clint and his great team, we want to show you all what we've done, and hopefully it can benefit you too. So really quickly, I'm just going to show you a couple slides about what the platform does and what data we can provide outside the platform, and then I'll show you what it looks like in the platform too. You'll see I'm going to show a bunch of screenshots of your county, but it's not the full county. And the reason is that the boundary that we've created the platform for is the wildfire crisis strategy boundary, which doesn't have complete coverage of the county. So when you get into the platform, if you decide to do so, you'll see that that's a limitation for you all. We can work with you all to expand the boundary to include the whole county, or if you wanted something like a CWPP, it would of course cover the entire county, but just that little disclaimer. So what you're looking at here is wildfire hazard modeling for the whole, or for the part of the county that we cover. Our wildfire hazard modeling is done by our sister company, Pyrologics. And so what you're seeing is the darker color, kind of maroon, is where there's higher wildfire hazard. And that means that there's a higher likelihood of fire occurrence and a higher likelihood that that fire would occur in a greater intensity where you see the darker. And so that's already done. That exists for, the part of the county that you see, and then a much larger area that I'm not showing. That's that whole WCS boundary. And so when you're in the platform, you can see that, but we also offer that as something we can provide to you as a raster or whatever, format you would need that data in. And then what we do in the platform is we take that hazard and we say that hazard exists, and we want to know how it interacts with the landscape features that have societal value to you all. And so Clint and his team have already done the hard work of identifying what those values are. In our platform and in all of our data products that we provide, we have a set of these landscape features that are based on publicly available West-wide data. So we map things like structures, or utility lines to the best of our ability with that publicly available data. We show where it is on the landscape, and then we consider what a structure's response would be to wildfire and what the response would be to potential management. So we use aspen stands often as an example of this. We can map where aspen are, and we can model how they would interact with different intensities of wildfire. But we can also model how they would be impacted and perhaps their resilience enhanced, but with different management types. And so perhaps a thinning would provide enhanced resilience for an aspen stand, whereas grazing would decrease the resilience or ecological resilience of that aspen stand. So we're in the platform, we're considering multiple responses. So responses to wildfire and responses to different management types for, in this case, 24 different landscape features with societal value across this landscape. So again, you're seeing just the part of the county that we cover in the platform, but the access is actually quite broader than that. And if you were interested, we could expand the access to include the whole county. And this is based on publicly available data, but now it's also based on local data, Forest Service data to enhance the, we've got just that publicly available data. Clint and his team did the work of providing much more in-depth footprints of where these landscape features with societal value are across the landscape, and helped inform the responses to fire and management. And so you can see just like the completely wide range of the types of things that we've got covered here. And I know I'm not describing them all, but I'm happy to if that's of interest. So what we do in the platform and what we can do outside of the platform is that we can work with you all to decide how you want to prioritize those landscape features. So if it's of interest, as a fire safe council, you're interested in risk to structures and to safety, maybe critical access routes, emergency service facilities, in the platform or in a quantified wildfire risk assessment, we could essentially weigh those objectives with you all. And what you're looking at here is the risk to assets and safety features in your county. So before, a couple slides back, we're looking at hazard. That doesn't take into account your structures, your WUI, etc. Here, we're looking at risk to the things that I've told the platform you care about. And that in this case, I just said safety and assets. You could say that you also care about biodiversity or water, any of the landscape features that we've mapped and considered response functions to. You can tell us, or you can tell the platform that you care about those things as a group, and the risk map would respond accordingly in real time. And I can show you in a minute what that looks like. Alternatively, if you don't want to get into the platform because it does have a learning curve to it, you can also work with us to just get a quantified wildfire risk assessment, which looks like this. And I won't show, it's a 60-page document that we can provide for you. And essentially, we run your landscape through the same set of data and analysis, but now you're getting a report rather than a platform that you've got to learn. And so here, I'm just showing a couple different slides that show what that looks like. So this has got all the same data, the burn probability, the wildfire intensity, and then and how those things interact with the features on your landscape that you care about. So the change in value if a fire were to occur. Additionally, so that's all risk, right? We've talked about like hazard, risk, how it applies to the things you care about. We've got in our platform and outside of our platform the ability to show you the opportunity that you have to manage for that risk, so to reduce the risk to the things you care about. So what you're seeing here is different than a couple slides ago when you saw the different like darker shades of orange that were representing risk. Here we're showing darker shades of blue that represent the opportunity to reduce risk to the features that you said you cared about in the platform or that you told us. And so what the platform does is it finds management opportunities and calculates the ability to reduce that risk through management. And eventually what you get in the platform, or you can get through us through reports, is a prioritized project roadmap to reduce risk to the things you care about. It's essentially getting at what you would do in a community wildfire protection plan. And so this is not, this is an area outside of your county. I just ran somewhere in the WCS landscape that I put in a couple random values. I said I cared about safety, assets, and water, and it told me the top 5 projects within the area that I drew kind of at random to reduce risk to safety, assets, and water. It tells you that based on a set of 8 different treatment types and their ability to reduce risk. It gives you management costs, it gives you some different kind of treatment logistics, ownership. There's quite a bit in the platform that's going on. And so you can do that in the platform. We also have what we call a project roadmap that you can access. Same data, but we give you the report. So there's always an option to do it in the platform or to do it in a report if that suits you better. And then this is really neat. We've just kind of come out with this in the last few months. We now have the ability in our platform to assess predicted outcomes for those projects. And we can do this either with projects you already have implemented or planned, but we can also do this with the projects that you generate in the platform. We're able to build what we call proposals, and this lets us see predicted outcomes for if we were to implement this set of projects. So in this case, if we were to implement the 5 projects that I showed you on the last screen, we would see a 22% reduction in wildfire hazard in that planning area. So you would be able to, with your CWPP, show, here's our set of projects for the next 10 years. If we implement them, here are our predicted outcomes. And those predicted outcomes have to do with wildfire hazard, but you can also look at things like reduction in highly exposed structures or increased value of your different biodiversity or water features, for instance. And so we tend to think of these things as great metrics for communicating to stakeholders, but also grants, fundraising around your CWPP. How do you get the funding to implement? Another thing that we can do is in that kind of CWPP pipeline or as a platform user, we can also work with a partner, Fireside, to bring the wildland risk into your actual parcel level risk. And so we're really in this space of thinking about wildfire risk as, you know, the likelihood of a fire to occur, how intense it will be, and we also consider how exposed structures will be. And we can do that at the parcel level. So we can say a wildfire is likely to occur, it's likely to be intense, and your structures are likely to be exposed. So we do that through modeling ember load to structures. We work with our partner Fireside to say, how susceptible are your structures to fire if they were to be exposed? And we can come up with things like what we call a parcel level risk score that allows you then at the community level to determine where you should prioritize home inspections, you know, defensible space programming, those types of things. So that's sort of an offering that's outside of the platform, but based on the same data that's in the platform. So I have this question slide, but before I get there, I do just want to flash up on the screen what the platform looks like. And could you see when I changed my screen there?
Yes.
Okay. So here we're looking at a part of the county, and I just want to show you what I meant by like weighting your landscape features. So here you'll see when I start to turn these things on, so I'm saying that I care about assets, all of a sudden you see that this blue has populated on the screen. So that's that opportunity to protect my assets. I can do the same thing with risk, and it'll take a second to load here because I'm doing a lot with my computer. But it is pretty instant that this risk will then populate. So this is essentially a quantified wildfire risk assessment for assets in your county. And that's downloadable data from the platform. I can then also come down here, and this is where I start to make projects. So I can say, you know, I'm looking for 5 years of 1,000 acres a year of implementable projects that are the best bang for my buck for protecting assets. And I can do this in just a couple minutes. The platform will then spit those projects out, and there will be a bunch of associated kind of project statistics and information, and then I can take those projects and look at those outcome metrics all right in the platform pretty much in real time. So I want to pause there. I know it's a ton of information. Clint, I want to make sure I covered what you want me to cover, and I want to answer any questions folks have.
I'm just waiting to see if there's any questions for you before I start in.
Well, I have a quick question. Hi, Kaylee, this is excellent. And Clint, this is an awesome tool. But the question is, looks like Southern Siskiyou County was left off. Communities of Dunsmuir, McLeod, Mount Shasta City itself, maybe Weed. It's hard to tell where the boundary is. Was there a reason? Was it just because a lot of the landscape, it's less urban, so you guys focused on that area above those cities?
Yeah, I can answer that for you, Pamela. So the forest, the five forest and the four forest in Northern California, and then the Fremont Wainema in Southern Oregon received funding specifically for the wildfire crisis strategy to cover the Klamath River Basin. So that boundary is the boundary for the Klamath River Basin watershed. As Kaylee was mentioning earlier, the wildfire crisis strategy is kind of slowly fading away. However, our objectives of protecting communities and other things hasn't. So there is opportunity to add, potentially to add the county if there's interest and stuff. But that's the reason, was because we got money specific for the Klamath River Basin at the time. And that's what our funding was for.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you very much for that.
Glenn, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you could, in the live version, if you could zoom into, for example, a particular community or somebody on maybe along the Klamath River or something that and kind of go through your different categorizations again, so that we can kind of see, you know, at a level that we might actually recognize. Like zoom in on Etna. Yeah, you had that. Zoom in on Etna.
Okay, one second.
And then kind of go through your different mapping configurations?
Yeah.
Just slightly southwest is Etna, but you probably could do any communities. There's Wairika. That's Etna right there, Etna, Fort Jones.
Okay.
That'd work right there. That'd work. Yep.
Yeah, just
Okay.
zoom in enough that we can kind of see almost, I don't know, not quite the parcel level, but at least something like we see how it affects the whole town.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
So let's start with hazard. That's where we started to begin with. And you'll see it starts to populate. And when you'll notice it's, if you're familiar with GIS, it's not actually a raster. This is segmented by what we call management units. So when we zoom out, it looks like a raster, but when you get closer, you see it's actually segmented by these little parcels, not by private parcel boundaries, but by homogeneous vegetation types. And this works its way all the way through. I know we're getting a little into the weeds there for some folks, but that's an important part of like the usability then for coming up with treatment areas. And so you'll see then the hazards attributed to these small segments. And so again, this is wildfire hazard to the wildlands. And so the reason you start to see some lighter areas here in these more urban areas is because we're modeling vegetation likelihood to burn. When you
And
get
those
into
are ranch fields.
what's that?
Those are predominantly ranch and
Yes.
farm fields. So yeah, open and groomed grasses. So the tops of the mountains that have the density of trees, those are the highest fuel concentration.
Yeah.
You get to the urban area and it's moderate. It's still colored all the way through the urban area.
Yeah, and I'll say that's fairly high hazard for an urban area. This is a layer I haven't shown you in the slides that I do want to show you, which is our structured transmission zone. And so this shows you the likelihood that if a fire were to start in a polygon, so in one of these units, that it would spread to structures. So obviously it's going to be high around an urban area with high wildfire hazard. The important thing to note now that we're into the platform is that these are those landscape features with societal value. So I'll turn one on structures and you'll see like in Fort Jones, the structures turn on. Utilities will be the same. The utility lines will pop up. Now, when we weigh assets and we say that we care about assets, what you're saying you care about are the landscape features that are mapped in this category. So the things on the right-hand panel correspond with the sliders on the left side. And now we're looking at a map of the opportunity to reduce the risk to those assets. And if I switch it to the orange here, you'll see the risk in a second. It just takes a second to load. And so that's the risk to the assets in this area.
It's hard not to look at this data and just instantly be overwhelmed by the enormity of the problem.
Yeah. I think.
Well, yeah,
Oh.
Kaylee probably doesn't have time to go into it, Glenn, but it is. I mean, yeah, trying to get to the enormity of the problem. But one thing I like about this is she could hit the run button right now that says, show me the best 7 project areas that are 1,000 acres on this landscape, and maybe she can do it, and then it'll help you prioritize where those projects should go, in this case based on protecting the assets of this community.
So the planning area that we've drawn is almost the whole county. So the projects might not show up right here, but they might. This is a pretty high hazard area right here. It'll take a few minutes to load, so we can definitely go to other questions, but this is that's kind of the workflow of the platform. And then once you've got those projects, you head over to this tab propose, and that's where you get those metrics of, if we did these projects, what benefit would we see? And that's when you start to Glenn's point, like get a sense of the enormity of the problem, but also how, these high ROI projects, these big bang for your buck projects start to chip away at that hazard and risk.
Well, while we're waiting, does anybody else have questions for Kaylee? If you do, just get your hand raised or put them in the chat. So I have more of a logistical question. So for Clint and Kaylee. So I assume Vibrant Planet is a private company and that you were hired by the Clint's group, by the Forest Service to do this work, which it's awesome. So now my question is that as the Fire Safe Council, how do we use this information? Will there be a cost to us, and how do we use it within our rewrite of our CWPP? Because Clint, you mentioned you'd already been talking to Jay.
Yeah. So the great news is that because Clint has already worked with us to stand this platform up, you all can, through Clint, get access to the platform that's free. So the way we work is that whoever purchases us is the keeper of the key, and they can give it out to whomever they'd like. The downside is that we aren't fully covering the county. And so to fully cover the county, there would be a cost, and I don't know what that cost would be off the top of my head. The positive is you kind of have two relatively low cost pathways to accessing the information you'd need for a CWPP, which is either expanding the boundary slightly to make full coverage of the county, and we could, if it's of interest, explore, what that would cost, or you could go the route of just working with us to do the CWPP report, which doesn't require changing the boundary of the platform. It's a separate kind of pipeline that we have to run that data and just produce you the data that you would need. That would come with the rasters and the project roadmap and the wildfire hazard data, everything you need then to make that CWPP. It actually comes as a final report, and I'll click over like this. It fills out this entire template along with a bunch of data in a geodatabase that you would need. And so that's an option too, and it's incredibly low cost compared to the type of data that you would need to gather and analyze for a traditional CWPP process. But it's based on the size of the county, so I don't know the exact cost of that either. But if either one of those was of interest, we would work with you to figure out a solution.
Oh, thanks, Kaylee. Marlene, you had a question up?
Yeah. Okay, so this is a private company, but somehow it's related to the U.S. Forest Service. I don't quite understand what the connection.
Yeah, so Marlene, we do various contracts and agreements with various folks that can help us answer some questions or needs that we have. In this case, the Forest Service decided to do a contract with Vibrant Planet so that they could help us provide a need on federal lands to help us prioritize wildfire risk and hazard to those values and assets that we identified. So they're providing a service for us to help us create a 5-year program of work. And beyond that allows us to identify what projects we feel are the best moving forward across our forest for community protection, infrastructure, and other things.
So the Forest Service is basically paying for this. I mean,
Correct.
So you've gotten your money? I mean, have you received it, or is this just a?
Yep, it's already in a contract, and we're good till the spring of next year with them and using this data and information.
Oh,
That's
well,
correct.
That's good. I just worry about things like that these days, So, okay. So now, because like I'm on Old McLeod Road in Mount Shasta, and there's forest all over the place past my house. And I was just curious why that area wouldn't be covered. I mean, is it just that they're taking certain areas first, or how, how is that figured?
It's a watershed boundaries, basically, Marlene. And so the Mount Shasta Dunsmuir area is not part of the Klamath watershed.
Oh, okay, okay.
So
So
that's
I
a
see.
real basic description of why it looks on the map, it looks like it's arbitrary, but it's based on a lot, mostly watershed boundaries.
Oh, okay, okay, I get it now. It's a lot to take in at once.
Yeah.
It's
It
like
is.
almost listening to a foreign language. So, okay, thank you.
Okay, Dave, you have a question?
Yeah, this is a great product. The question is on the historical data. It's like, does it give you reports like if you had that project created through this and said, we did this product or project, now what is the results of that project? Can you show historical information on that to show the effectiveness of that mitigation? And how would that help support future projects and grant applications? How would do that kind of thing?
Yeah, there is a tool I won't show right now because it's a little wonky to bring in the projects you've already done, to your point, and essentially like grow the project in the platform so that we can bring it into the proposal feature that does those metrics. It's not exact for a couple reasons. One of them is that the platform is designed to show the impacts of projects over a 15 to 20-year time horizon, because we know it takes a long time for planning to, for you to plan your projects, get them through NEPA, get them implemented, and then see the results of them. So it's considering a time horizon. We're also like to look backwards. We are considering the fire return interval departure. So that's one of the kind of layers of data that's taken into account. So how departed is this landscape from historical fire occurrence? So it's considering backwards and forwards, what the impacts would be.
And then right now, how much time frame data do you have in this platform? Number of years goes back?
That's a great question. And 1950 to present is the, yeah, okay.
So you could take a project that has been done previously and say, hey, we want to do a project similar to this. Historically, it does X.
Not exactly. So the vegetation modeling done here would already account for the fact, if that project's been done recently, it would already be incorporated into the reduction in hazard because you've already altered the vegetation. And so in the last year, we've considered that done. What you could do is essentially like build the project again, and this is why it wouldn't be precise, is that you'd be looking at the impacts of a project built on vegetation data that's already been altered because you've already altered the vegetation.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jay, you have a question?
So, Clint, I think we need to find out what it would cost to do the whole county and start with that, and then we'll figure out how to, whatever the cost is, we'll figure out how to pay it, and Julie and I and whatever, we can work with Giselle and, just start to assess what that might be. Because I think, given that this has been shown to everybody, I think it has the potential to be quite valuable tool. And so anyway, whatever, Clint, we need to do either through Kaylee, or if you have a different way you have to do that, let's see what we can come up with to cover the entire county.
Okay, let me work with Kaylee if you guys don't mind, and I can work with Jay, others on what your guys' needs are, and we can work with them to see what that cost might be.
Yeah, because if your contract basically ends by the middle of next year, probably the sooner we move forward, the better.
Right.
So I'll be in touch with you, Clint.
So
Yeah, this
Clint,
is kind of
are,
perfect timing. We can make a seamless transition, and we have the funding with the
so
CWPP.
So Clint, are you saying that we can use your leftover funds to move south or no? You're just gonna finish up here? What, you said you had another so many months left on your,
Okay, to be
so that,
clear, Giselle, we don't have any leftover funds.
oh,
The 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 if your projects or area is within the Klamath River Basin, you guys can use this today.
okay.
Any community, any area that's within what we already have, it's ready to go today. If you guys want that sliver to the south outside the Klamath River Basin, there's going to be a cost
Cost, okay.
that we could let you know how much that's going to be, and then we
Okay.
can talk funding
Sound great.
sources and if it's doable.
Yeah, well, we'll work with the team and if everybody's in agreement, it looks like might be a good thing.
So, yeah, I see this as I can see the advantage of this. Kaylee and Clint is obviously is a great planning tool. And especially when you're developing projects 5 and 10 years and 15 years out. My question, Kaylee, and I think this is on the same lines that Dave was asking, is that we use a program called Fireside that is home assessments. So when we get a group of homes, we do the home assessments, and then we're going in and doing defensible space around those homes. Can this program get that finite and to add that into it?
Yeah, so, and I know this slide's a little bit like, what am I looking at here? Then that's because we're actually doing kind of a pilot of exactly what you're talking about, Jamie, in Southern California right now with a couple of the CAL FIRE units, where we're taking our assessment of hazard plus exposure, so ember loading to specific parcels, and then we're giving that data, that parcel level risk score, to Fireside, and they're partnering that score with their susceptibility score of each parcel, and we're adding those scores together to then bucket parcels based on their susceptibility and exposure. So we're doing that, and we're literally giving CAL FIRE then a prioritized list of parcels for inspection. And so we can repeat that process up here as well. And so that's something, if that's of interest to you all to get to that level of granularity, then we'll look at what it would take to do that too.
Yeah, that is an interest. As I said, we use Fireside. We've been using it for just over a year now. And to develop priorities, we did it a little bit different way based on local knowledge. And we used a matrix to develop it. And there was all kinds of input we had into that. But if you guys are already working with that program, I mean, that's really cool. Because
that's we're kind of working in partnership in California and then potentially Colorado with them because there's that obvious kind of overlap where the wildlands meet structures, and we need to figure out how to work together. So I did want to just jump quickly, Glenn. This is the project output here on the screen. And it just so happened that the greatest opportunity to reduce risk was indeed around this area, which you probably knew, and why you recommended we zoom in here. So you're seeing these 7 different projects. They are prioritized in order of risk reduction opportunity to assets. And this is 7,000 acres of treatment. And what's neat here is this is 0% coverage of the county. So we're only covering 7,000 of however many acres the county is. And for that, essentially less than 1% coverage of the county, we're seeing a 5% risk reduction to assets. So we've covered, it's, that ratio of bang for your buck. And that's really what the folks who founded this company wanted to show, was it's not number of acres, but it's the most impactful acres on the landscape. And if we can treat those, we can best reduce risk to the things we care about most. So that's pretty neat. And then I'll just show you, this is a very high level overview, but it does show you the different types of treatment methods it's recommending, product benefit, and then it gets into some of the high level financials as well. There's a lot more detail when we get to the proposals level where we bring these projects in and we say, show us those predicted outcomes and tell us what it would take to get there. And then one last thing I want to show you, because we are talking about more granular parts of looking at risk, is that here we are back at the segmentation. And when we open this up, this management unit statistics viewer, now I can click on these individual units. Again, these are segmented primarily by homogeneous veg type and slope, things like that. And now I can see lots of detail about each of these units, including like the number of acres, the slope, distance to a mill, burn probability for that specific unit. And then it gets down into the actual treatment that it's recommending, what it would cost, how much of the risk reduction opportunity is involved in that specific unit. And when you download these projects, when you get the shapefile, it comes with over 140 attributes. So you're only seeing some of the attributes here. There's just like so much information behind the scenes. So yeah, Heidi.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Heidi.
So what would be like the lifespan for a given treatment? So if you're looking at 5 years down the road and you do mastication and it's on a particular veg type that regrows, like manzanita, and then that risk drops to near zero, year 1. But by year 5, is there a way to capture the increase in risk and roll that into, what you're modeling? So if there is there a graphical way to kind of portray that?
A really good question. We sort of struggle in the platform currently to show the impact of maintaining a treatment like mastication. And so that's kind of a limitation. And in other landscapes that have used this platform to plan out like a 10 or 20-year veg management plan, they tend to have to manually work in their maintenance treatments or multiple phase treatments, because we really are just showing one treatment in a snap. It's not a small snapshot, but it's a relatively small snapshot of time. And so it's a limitation that most folks work through manually. We also always say, this is a decision support tool and you should go out and ground truth what these, what's being shown here. And it might be recommending thinning, and you might say, it's actually would be mastication would work much better here, or a series of treatments would work much better here. We're kind of identifying like blobs to go look at on the landscape, essentially.
All right, is there a way to track that? Let's say that you have your projects and you implement your projects, and then is there a way to grow that project through time and actually visually see that, so that you as a land manager can say, looks like we're nearing another action on the land, and so it's not lost because people move on and
Yeah.
Okay, if not, that's great. I mean, this is already really cool. So
there's the idea, like the initial idea of the platform would be that folks would subscribe to it, and then the vegetation model would update every year. And so you would continue to assess your projects over the changing vegetation, because our vegetation model and our hazard model are updated annually. We're working on updating them quarterly. And so the goal would be that you kind of would do that adaptive cycle, but we've only been around for 4 years, and so no one has truly gone through that like whole life cycle of an adaptive plan that you would adjust based on your change in veg. So it's like, I love how you're thinking. It's inspiring me to bring some ideas back to our group, but I think it is a limitation for us now.
thank you.
Kristen, you had your hand up next.
She just answered one of my questions, how long they had been around. My other question was how long has Clint been working, working with the Vibrant Planet? Obviously less than 4 years. So I wanted to clarify. So the contract that the Klamath River landscape, whatever, the crisis funding runs out next year, you said. And so this access, your access, all of our access to this goes away at that point, correct, Clint?
Yeah, unless we renew, which, there's a possibility that we will, because we've flipped the biggest cost of it is building it, and then just renewing the subscriptions a lot less. So there's a good chance that we could renew for another 1 to 5 years. To answer your question, since February, the contract's been
Okay. Oh, wow. So a lot's been done in a short amount of time. Oh.
Yes.
Yeah. No, this is amazing. I mean, I remember Tuli Potts talking about Vibrant Planet a while back, and none of us had ever heard of it. And we're like, what's that? So now we know. It's a really amazing tool, and exactly what we've been discussing at Somix, and obviously totally aligned with our CWPP. So yeah, really excited to get everyone to the table for both of those uses and see what we can finagle.
I'll just also note, as we explore, what the cost would be to expand to cover the whole county, we can also look at the cost to have your landscape, your county be its own, start at a different annual cadence, so that if the Klamath wasn't to renew, you wouldn't be affected by that. So we can look at like what it would cost to do that too. Sorry, I know Glenn, you had your hand up.
Yeah, Glenn.
Yeah. For the identifying problem areas, can you turn it around and identify structures or that are at highest risk?
Yeah.
That would help with prioritizing, for example, defensible space work.
So the best way to do it in the platform, I'll reshare my screen. Aside from the Fireside partnership, which is that's the best way really to identify individual parcels with the greatest risk, is that we do in our WUI layer here, you can prioritize. If you prioritize rather than assets, as we did in this example, you prioritize safety, then you're prioritizing risk reduction opportunities to your WUI, to your critical access routes, your emergency facilities. So the way I'm presenting today is as if you can only prioritize one of those things. You can say, I care about assets, I care about safety, I care about biodiversity. You can care about all of those things on a scale of 0 to 5, and you can weigh or emphasize all of them. That's a kind of more broad stroke way to get at concern around structures. The better, more precise way likely for you all is that partnership with Fireside, where we take our exposure score and they partner it with their susceptibility score. And now you're looking at like actual risk to the most highly exposed, worse off structures. And that is outside of the platform, I should say, at this point. Although we are always, as a tech company, working to bring more features into the platform, and that's kind of the highest on our docket to bring in next.
Okay.
Do you have any more questions? This has all been a great conversation.
Just a comment.
Yes.
I met with our GIS guy yesterday, and he brought to my attention that a map that we produced when we did the Wairika CWPP, when it became public information, it also became available to insurance companies, and that insurance companies are going to look at it very differently. And so I think there's we may want to exercise caution in the kind of questions that we ask, so that in the end we're not jeopardizing individual landowners and their potential to get insurance. Without a doubt, we want to work with landowners or with homeowners to get them to reduce the risk. But at the same time, how is that information being used? I'm not saying it shouldn't be used. It's just a yellow flag of caution.
Okay, thanks, Jay.
That's a good point, Jay. I've had others also express that same concern.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Then I really would want to thank Kaylee. What a great presentation and a great product that you have. It's nice to see how technology is moving forward and going way beyond what we've used in the past. So this is great information, and thank you, Clint. And my last question to you, Clint, is how would that be available to us? How would we go about accessing the information?
Myself or Kaylee, I can send out the information to get within the Klamath River Basin watershed. I have a key that you and then it's a link to the Vibrant Planet, and then
Oh, okay.
That way you don't have access to everywhere in the world, just the Klamath River Basin area.
Right.
So, yep, I can provide that.
Thank you. Marlene, you had another question? Marlene?
Yeah, I forgot to do the microphone. Sorry. I heard the best way of doing the manzanita is if you can masticate it all and then basically, as it starts coming back, burn it. But how would you even go about doing that? I mean, because then you're playing with fire and then I mean, do you agree with that, first of all? And, and would you hire somebody that just did that? Or what is your take on that?
Okay.
Anybody can answer. So,
all right.
Manzanita is its own interesting vegetation and its own quirks. And the Fire Safe Council and Giselle and the Mount Shasta Fire Safe Council deals with that a lot. And the regrowth of manzanita is a problem. And usually it's pulling it out is one of the more permanent ways to deal with it.
Right. So manzanita is controversial. I've heard some people say that it doesn't burn, let it be, and then others say it's full of terpenes, it's very highly dangerous, it's got a higher ignition point, but it will burn. And so when you cut it or masticate it or hand release it, it does come back. The only, and a lot of people don't want to use herbicides. That's one way. When it starts to come up, use a little herbicide. The very best way to eradicate it is to pull it out. And that takes a lot of money. You have to get a backhoe and a contractor and chains and pull that stuff out and then haul those burly things away to some place to dispose of them. They're really hard to burn. So we've decided that mastication is the best. And then when it starts to come back, you take your weed eater and you just keep it down. Don't let it grow big. Just keep it down in the spring and in the fall. Go out there and weed eat it down. And then if you don't mind herbicides, that helps too. So you've got to make up your mind, if you can afford to pull it and haul it, that's probably the best treatment for keeping it away for the longest period of time, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, our property and
Yeah.
weed eating is kind of out of the picture. Where
Yeah.
I mean, I can't even picture it in my mind. And we did have it all masticated like about a year ago. I mean, a year ago we had, the right.
They came back and did it again. Yeah.
And it's starting to come back a little bit. It's not horrible. It'll be good for another year or two, but
right.
But pulling it, I can't even picture, because the roots go down forever.
It's a job. It's a job. So yeah.
Can I comment, please? I'm sorry, my video is not working. My name's
Sure.
Fiona. Hi, Marlene. I put quite a few comments in the chat. I left the number of a local contractor. I believe he does masticate. He can masticate if you want it. But last summer, in the summer of 2024, any small manzanita plants I pulled out by hand. It means not going to the gym. So you get down on the ground, you squat, and you pull it out. This year I have wild grasses all filled in. Of course, I had 21 feet of snow and rain up here. I'm high up, high elevation. This year I hired Roman Sandler to come in for 3 days and start ripping out on the acreage, all the big plants. The manzanita have shallow roots compared to snowbrush and chinkapin. My biggest problems are chinkapin. Those roots go very, very deep if you have a lot of water. Okay, I live at 5,200 feet, so I get a lot of water up here, which is great, right?
Yeah.
But I get what you're saying about the mastication. I get that too. But just so you know, ripping it out, I love manzanita. It's a beautiful plant, but it is highly flammable and it is dangerous. It just is. I love it. It's beautiful, but you want it out.
Yeah.
But anyway, I left his number. I think he's a McLeod resident, but he's here in South Siskiyou, and he did a beautiful job. And he'll come back next year and do more for me because there's more to do.
Yeah. And Marlene has taken good care of her property. The Fire Safe Council funds helped her the first round, and then she hired somebody on her own.
Yeah.
But it's, yeah, and I agree with you, Pamela. The best way is to pull it if you can afford to pull it.
Or if you're fit enough to pull. I can tell you, get in shape pulling it.
Yeah, we're past that point.
Yeah. Older Americans.
Well, I'm almost 70, so but I'm just saying it took some work, and you got to get up early.
So
you got to get up early in the morning because last summer, oh my God! But I did do it, and it worked.
All right,
we should go on to the next.
Yeah, we need to keep going on our agenda.
Okay, well, thank you.
All right. Again, Kaylee, I want to thank you for presenting tonight. We really appreciate it, and you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you very much, and I'll work with Clint on getting y'all some different options from us.
Yeah, we'll look forward to hearing from you.
Great.
As you get into the platform, if you have questions about how things work, we've got some office hours. I can set up times with y'all to walk you through, so you're not on your own in there. I know it's a lot of information.
All right, and thanks, Clint, for sharing this information with us, bringing Kaylee to us. We really appreciate it.
Thank y'all.
All right, I'm going to move us on to the next item, but before I do that, Dave put in the chat that they've put an evacuation order for Siskiyou Zone 5004 for the Jade Fire. So it's fire season, folks. Here we are. We're going for it. The next update is the Community Wildfire Defense Grant. We're moving along with the CWDG grant. We're just about to award our bid and start the actual physical work of a defensible space in our first community. Excuse me, our first communities. And I will let Josh, I'll put him on the spot here about how many home assessments we've done, because we just talked about it yesterday. So
yes, thanks, Jamie. Yeah, for Cecilville, that's 15 homes that are going out to bid. And then we also have 2 other packets that will be released soon for Scott Bar of 10 residents and then Forks of Salmon of 11. To date, we've done 135 home assessments in that range and looking for more. So we are transitioning to Dunsmuir, the Lieutenant Bray area, and Wairika Humbug. Lives in those areas that's interested in having a free home assessment with the possibility of free defensible space. The project sign up is in the chat. We come out with the same software that Kaylee and Clint were talking about, Fire Aside, where we give you a home assessment looking at your defensible space, the home hardening. Gives a nice, organized, detailed report. These are just private recommendations that we're giving out. We're not enforcing anything. That's the bit I have. I do have a quick plug. We are looking for a new project coordinator. So this is a great opportunity for individuals in Siskiyou County. That is also in the chat for those that you may know that want to apply. This is a good opportunity for somebody to undertake our outreach coordinator position. Any questions, you can reach out to me through email. Thank you, Jamie. If I'm missing anything, apologies.
Just to reiterate, the home assessments are free, and so is the defensible space work that we contract out. This is all through the Community Wildfire Defense Grant.
And I do have one more plug. You can find us this weekend. We will be at the Railroad Days up in Dunsmuir, and then we will also be at the Wairika Golden City Days on Minor Street. So if you're in those areas, come say hello.
Okay, thanks, Josh.
I have a question for Josh.
Go ahead, Heidi.
I know you were gonna get to Mount Shasta. Is that still on the radar for later or for the home assessments?
It is still on target for later.
Okay.
But we are having internal conversations as a team on how we could maybe speed things up. And one of those is bringing on another team member. So we're hoping to get a little faster.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that the opportunity was still out there at some point. Great. Thank you.
Definitely is. And the more people we have interested in an area, the better, because as opposed to being shotgun approach, we want to try to condense and get as many people in a neighborhood in an area as possible. It's more effective from a fire standpoint.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Forest Service update. Clint had to leave, and I don't think we have anybody else from the Klamath. Did I see anybody? And then the Shasta T. Christine, do you have an update for us?
Yeah, just a quick update. We have our underburns. They're still in patrol status. McBride and Highway 89, they're looking great. No smoke, but we just like to keep an eye on them for a good long while before we call those out. We have a contract plan for the South Fork Road. It's going to be a cut and chip fuel reduction contract, and that should be starting this summer. We're working on an agreement with CAL FIRE so that they can basically help us or rather partner with us around the district. It's in the works. It seems like it should be very simple, but the cogs of bureaucracy turn very slowly. But our fuels planner, Brian Murphy, is working on that. And then there's a large project to reduce fuels out in the Ash Creek area. So that would be between 89 and the Pilgrim Creek snowmobile park. That's in planning stages. And then on the suppression side, we did receive quite a bit of lightning, but as of now, no new fires. There was quite a bit of rain, particularly on the north side of the mountain. We're at peak staffing levels, engines are staffed, there's contract resources available to augment that staffing, again, with that lightning. And last week we had a 2-acre live fire training, which was wonderful to be able to put a little fire on the ground, just an acre, and have the crews put it out and practice those skills. And the Siskiyou Bear lookout is staffed. So we are in full suppression, full fire mode. And that is the end of our report.
Great. Thank you, Christine. Any questions for Christine before I move on? All right. And now CAL FIRE. We have Kevin tonight.
Yeah, you guys barely have me. I'm multitasking. I've got another device here I'm juggling. I actually have oversight on the Siskiyou Lightning Complex, and I'm not going to make any suggestions, but the Jade incident is right within arm stroke of where everything happened yesterday. So operationally, I think we're up to 8 fires out of lightning for the last few days, but the folks on the ground have done a great job in wrangling those. I think we're at 108 acres totally. Looking good there. So fuels treatment wise, let's see. We've had the Greenhorn VMP, which was a collaboration with the city of Wairika and the PBA and a whole bunch of folks. It was a great effort, high visibility by the public, and lots of positive feedback from that. We're evaluating another 22 acres there, possibly next week in Greenhorn. We're just navigating that based on weather and resource availability, because come to find out, we're rather busy this year. Also looking at Wairika Ridge for about a 30-acre piece up there, shooting for next week. Fuels projects continuing Wairika Ridge, Osgood, as stated, we're going to work with SHF and the KNF on that 97 corridor and wherever else we can, grabbing targets of opportunity. And I'm sure I'm missing something, but I apologize. I'm distracted compared to what I typically am. Open to any questions, suggestions, discussions, but if I'm not here to ask those, it's probably because other duties is necessary.
I walked through Greenhorn Park this week, Kevin. That was a really nice prescribed burn. It looks great.
Yeah, and actually, I did think of a couple other things. Thank you for that. I do want to say that the PBA, I think we had 11 or 12 folks came out there. We got torches in some of their hands, Mike and Patty and their folks out there, which was awesome to be able to integrate that stuff and just get the experience. And I call it cross-pollination, just making new friends, seeing what we do. And also, I do know that we had a successful chipping project in Hammond Ranch a week and a half ago. And yesterday was a successful treatment, I believe, in 10 properties downriver and Happy Camp with the Mickwick folks and Mike. So that little token that I tossed out to you folks about 3 months ago is gaining ground. I'm starting to see some stuff develop out in KRCE. So I think the residents putting in the work and then we come and help get rid of the material, I think it's starting to get legs and we may be setting a foundation for something moving forward. So I appreciate that.
Great. Heidi has a question.
Yeah, Kevin, I just want to give accolades to the fire crews that came out, the CAL FIRE crews, Jason Collier, Jonathan Duncan. Gateway Firewise community did take advantage of that offer, and we got 27 homes chipped. And I got 55 people now on the email list, and I think it's all that activity plus the Spring Hill fire really got people going. So thank you, Kevin. And if we can do this again next spring, maybe a little earlier because of the fire potential, we'd be totally interested in it. So, and shout out to Giselle and Kristen too for getting all the neighbors within their captain area for helping get people involved.
Yeah, great work, folks. It really comes down, this is the community part of it where we just get that collaboration going. The maps and all that technology is amazing and shows us where to go, but this is the grassroots of it all. And I think we're coming back to it and it's getting good legs.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. And hope you're not too busy tonight. Okay, we'll move on. I'm going to try to go through this a little quickly just because we had a longer presentation, but Caltrans, Shasta Valley, RCD, stop me if I miss someone, UC Extension, OrCal, RCD, Siskiyou Prescribed Burn, Scott River Watershed Council, Mount Shasta Bioregional, Sierra Nevada Conservancy. There you are. Thule.
Hey there. Sorry, I'm multitasking as well. But hey, just quick update. Our governing board did approve a set of guidelines for a wildfire recovery and forest resilience round of funding. So those grant guidelines should be live on our website, I believe this next week. I think the 17th is the target for getting those out. So otherwise, not a lot more to report. Thanks all.
Thanks, Thule. Siskiyou County OES, Board of Supervisors, Red Cross, Pacific Power. I'm just going to go down. I don't see the air quality, Siskiyou County air quality.
Yeah.
Sheriffs.
Not
You're
much
here.
to update on. Not much to update from the air district. It's looking good out there, air quality wise. But burn season's coming, so we're expecting the usual. So thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Darren. Sage P. Okay, local Fire Safe Council updates. I'm just gonna skip over them as a whole unless somebody has something specific. Mickwick, Mike, do you have something? Because you had a project going. Do you have a thing to report tonight?
Hey, everyone. I just want to thank, well, lots of thanks. Kevin Mancebo, as he said a few months ago, he mentioned how he wanted to use CAL FIRE staff and chippers to assist with projects in our rural communities. And it turned out it happened. So we had a great chipping day. I put a photo up in the chat, but I want to thank Kevin in particular, Darren, and so many other CAL FIRE folks. But we had engines and chippers. We ended up chipping for 6 hours yesterday, and that's the main quick update. It's mainly just a thank you to CAL FIRE for working with us in Happy Camp.
Great to hear that happened.
So cool. It was so great.
Yeah, sounds like it. All right. If there's anybody I skipped that has something to report.
I'd like to chime
Madeline?
in. Yeah. Just that a couple months ago I did talk to the Karuk tribe, and I talked to a woman, I forget her name, but they are reviving the Fire Safe Council for Quartz Valley and are getting a CWP done, and they should have a community meeting shortly, as it'll be, Quartz Valley wide.
It's Monday.
Oh, it's Monday. Oh gosh. Okay.
And it's going to be at their admin building, Madeline.
Okay.
Josh and I plan to go.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think what I say, Josh, 6:30?
That's correct.
Yeah, 6:30, Madeline.
Great. Thanks.
Okay, great. Glenn?
Hey, yeah, I just wanted to say thanks to CAL FIRE and the Forest Service and Mickwick for participating in the Wildfire Readiness Taco Fest that we held in the Klamath River Community Hall site about a month ago. Just trying to kind of get the word out to homeowners to be prepared for the fire season, and we had a pretty nice turnout. Also, my friends from Fire Safe Council of Siskiyou County were there to support us as well as United Way and a bunch of others. So it was a nice event. I would love for it to be annual, just as a way of educating people that there's a lot of programs out there, and there's great agencies like CAL FIRE and Forest Service, but people have to be responsible for their own homes first. And if they need help, they reach out, but they've got to make sure their home gets prepared. That's kind of an important lesson for all of us.
Great, thanks, Glenn. And then I was reminded that we didn't do a CWPP update. Jay, do you have anything for us, or did I just lose Jay as I said that? He just disappeared.
We have a meeting coming up on the 24th for mapping, right, Giselle?
I don't.
For the greater weed, so not for the countywide.
Yeah.
We haven't.
Yeah.
For anyone who hasn't heard the backstory, we have a CAL FIRE grant for both a countywide CWPP update that was last done in 2019, and to create a new CWPP for the greater weed area. And we are starting with the weed CWPP and have had an initial stakeholder meeting about a month and a half ago for that, and are having the next one on June 24th to go through mapping and boundaries and whatnot with stakeholders. So no public meetings yet. Looking towards end of summer, fall for those, and we will be starting the countywide CWPP within the year. Is that about right, Giselle?
For those of you who don't know what a CWPP is, it's a Community Wildfire Protection Plan. And it is a planning document to help us discover just what Kaylee was talking about, what our needs are throughout the county and where to plan projects, and to disseminate information to our citizens so they better understand our fire hazards and needs in this county. So.
All right, if there's not anything else, then I want to thank everybody for attending tonight. Please stay safe and fire wise.
I have a question.
Oh, yes, Pamela,
Sorry.
go ahead.
So these local FSC updates, all of these local little communities throughout the county, do they each have a CWPP? Is that why they're listed here?
No, they don't all have a CWPP. Some do, but it's just because there are fire safe councils in that area and people doing some awesome work, some volunteer, some not. And we give everybody a chance that wants it to tell us what they've been doing, but we're run out of time. We do it almost every month. We've run out of time this month. So unless somebody really wants to report something and we don't mind, we'll listen, then we're going to just skip for
Who's
now.
the contact in McLeod? Do you know?
Steve Richardson.
Steve Richardson, yeah. Yeah, I can get you that number.
Oh, great, Kristen.
Pam.
Yeah, I'll reach out to you via email.
Yeah.
And we'll get going on the Firewise Council blockage.
And Pamela, so you know that the Fire Safe Council of Siskiyou County's CWPP covers the whole county. So
yes, I understand.
Okay, individual ones have decided to do theirs too, but nobody is left out. Okay.
Right. It's all inclusive.
Yeah.
Okay. We're just having some problems starting up some Firewise communities because I think, and this comes with the MSF POA because we are not in the city of McLeod, but somehow we are like under the auspices of McLeod and what they're doing with their work, with their CWPP if they have one. So I guess I just need to understand what that's all about in McLeod before we can do anything out here in the forest. That's what that's about.
Well, they're not, my understanding, Pam and I have been kind of going back and forth via email about this, and my understanding is they don't really understand. And we just need to maybe, you know, if they're open to Giselle and or I coming out to one of their POA meetings, we're happy to do that to get them up to speed. But really, a POA or an HOA has no jurisdiction over whether anyone can start a Firewise community. They can't stop anyone from doing that. You don't need POA or HOA approval. It doesn't have to have anything to do with a POA or HOA. In fact, Hammond Ranch is specifically intentionally separating the Firewise community from their HOA for various reasons. So yeah, so they and you know, what they were telling Pam is that they can't do anything unless we get, you know, approval or go through the McLeod Fire Safe Council, and that's not true either. So
No, that's not
interesting.
True. It's very nice, Pam, if you do engage the fire safe councils and let them know what you do and communicate well with everyone that might be interested. You don't need their permission, but please communicate with them.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what it should
That's
be.
what I
It should
tell
be
them.
transparent. Exactly. All right, good. Thank you very much.
All right, everyone. Have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you
Thanks for
attending.
facilitating, Jamie. You're awesome. You always are.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Have a good
Good night,
night.
everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Good evening.